folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. We've got a problem with our peach trees. Turns out we've got peach leaf curl. They've just come out of bud break and the disease is getting started. So let me walk you through what we're doing to combat it. What you can see from this is you can see that there's the coloring of the leaves. They're swollen, they're distended, and this is happening on just about every bud that's breaking on this tree. So I would say that we're at a point where we're actually getting a pretty severe infestation. And the way to combat this is, at this point, is we have to use a stronger fungicide than just JMS treatments, which unfortunately, because of the way the weather was this last spring, I did not do to the level I should have done. And that's why I think what happened here is we had the conditions that were just perfect for this curl to get started on the tree. And it's on both of our peach trees. This variety right here is Veteran, and it seems to be the worst hit. Our other variety, Reliance, has it, but not quite as bad. Admit on the Reliance, there are leaves that are as bad, but not every bud has the disease. So unfortunately for the leaves that are already infected, they're toasted. So there's not much we can do other than to stop the fungal spread of the disease to the new growth. And that's what's going to be the purpose of using our Jadam sulfur and our wetting agent, or Jadam wetting agent, to combat this. And it's quite interesting. I mean, the weather we had in the last, before bud break, or right around bud break time, is the weather turned warm and wet. So we were approaching 60 degrees, which is warm for us. And at the same time, we had a lot of rain and very high humidity. And so that was just the perfect recipe for this disease just to bust out all over the place. And if I had been more religious about my applications during the dormant season, I think we could have probably kept the disease outbreak to a lower level. But the conditions of the weather, plus not keeping up on the levels that I should have been, definitely gave us what we got. So the thing about peach leaf curl is it's a fungal disease, and it's spread this time of year. It's endemic pretty much to our area, and peach leaf curl attacks trees varying depending on the variety. Some varieties are really highly susceptible to it, to the point where they just pretty much they can almost kill the tree if left to its own devices. And if the climate is still staying moist, which we have a lot of moisture in the ground, and at nighttime when the dew comes down and the temperatures drop back down into the 40s, humidity goes way up. It's all perfect. So warm days, cool nights, high humidity, this disease will keep spreading unless we put a stop to it. Now, we're going to be using what's called Jadam sulfur, which is a liquid sulfur, which we made last year. You notice that's a beautiful, nice red amber color. I believe we did a video on it, so I'll link to it, or it won't link to it. You know what? You go search for it. No, I'll put a link for it in the show description, so you can go back to it. Or even better yet, if you really watch all the way to the end of the video, you can click on it as a link to a linked video to what we did and how we made it. And then we'll also be using our wetting agent. Now, you may remember we made a bunch of wetting agent, and we put it in this handy dandy Costco super big tote all laundry detergent container. The great thing about it is it's got a spigot on it, and so we can keep the Jadam sulfur, the wetting agent, basically keep moisture out, and because it will attract moisture, and if it gets moisture in it, it'll start to turn cloudy. And this way, we basically are keeping it no contaminants getting in it of any kind, and we can use what we need, and then what we don't need. So we'll put it in this cup. We'll measure out what we need, and then what's extra, we just put it right back into the tote. That way we're not wasting anything at all when it comes to the wetting agent. So the key ingredients are the sulfur, the wetting agent, and softened water or rainwater or distilled water. Now, we don't have any softened water because we don't have a water softener, and we used up all our rainwater on a couple of other things that we were doing for spraying. And so I'm at a point now where I'm using distilled water for a while till we get some more rain and I can capture some more rainwater. We're going to use a 2-liter sprayer. You actually can get this as a link in our Amazon store, shameless plug. And this is where we got it anyway. We got it on Amazon, and it's made by Solo, and it's an adjustable sprayer, so it can go out as a stream or it can go out as a mist. And this is nice for small applications. Those are small trees out there. About 2 liters of spray will probably coat everything that's out there. So I don't need to, break out my big backpack sprayer or even a gallon sprayer. Ratios, that's very important. This is what you would call, it's a borderline, I would say, really extreme infestation to probably just getting started. If left to its own devices in another couple of weeks, it'll be, every bud will have it. And it's probably, you want to use a little bit stronger ratio. All right. So how do we mix it? That's the question. We use, if you wanted to get milliliter measurements per liter of finished solution, you're talking 2.5 milliliters per liter, which is a 1 to 400 ratio. So if you think about it, that's pretty diluted because this sulfur is really strong. When you make this liquid sulfur, we're using 100% sulfur and sodium hydroxide to basically dissolve it in a heated chemical reaction, but the amount of sulfur left in the finished solution is still quite high. I don't know for certain, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 90+%. So the majority of the sulfur did not off gas and stayed in the solution itself. So this is a very concentrated solution. So if you apply it, heavier than this, significantly, say like you say, 2.5 must be good, 25 is better. Big mistake. This stuff will burn vegetation if it's on too high a concentration. And so you want to be careful about using this. It's the same thing as if you're using a commercial lime sulfur solution in your dormant spray. If you use too much of it, it will burn the vegetation, damage the buds, whatever. And you can't use lime sulfur, commercial lime sulfur in this recipe saying, well, I don't have Jadam sulfur. I'll just go out and buy some lime sulfur and use it. I cannot tell you what the dilution rate would be for that. Because it is a different compound and would probably cause foliar damage. So you need to, do some research on that to figure out if you could use that as a substitute. I couldn't tell you if you could or if you couldn't. So I'm just going to be upfront. I don't know anything about it. So please don't think it's a 1-to-1 sulfur. It's not. Okay. So 1 to 400, 2.5 milliliters per liter. I'm going to make up 2 liters of solution. So I'm going to be using 5 milliliters of the sulfur solution. The wetting agent is a concentration of 25 milliliters per liter of solution, which is a 1 to 40 ratio. So again, 2 liters. So I'm going to be using 50 mil in my finished solution. And the way I mix this up is I'll put about 1 liter of water in the sprayer, and then I'll put in my active components, the sulfur and the wetting agent, kind of give it a little mix, and then top it off with another liter of distilled water, and then we're ready to spray. Now, it's important that when you're doing this, now when I film, the results of what we had out there, I actually applied a dressing of this last night, and it's already, I couldn't see any really huge results, but I tend to want to do these kinds of sprays when the sun is low in the sky. So it's either going to be like real early in the morning where the material has a chance to kind of get over its initial shock and kind of dry in and become how should I say, it's applied and dried on the foliage and on the tree itself before the heat of the sun and the high UV of the day is really going. So it's still on the tree, but the initial spraying, of course, is going to be maybe in a liquid form a little more active. But when it begins to dry off, it's still there, preventing any further fungal spores from getting out onto the new foliage. And then eventually what will happen is the foliage itself will start to, the peach leaf curl, what always looks, bright yellow or bright orange. Uh, that will begin to fade. It'll get a little more translucent to the point where the leaves will begin to kind of basically fall off the tree. Those leaves are toasted. Anytime you see a leaf with fungal infection in it, that leaf is toasted. What we're going for is preventing infection of the new growth that's going to come from behind it. And again, when you're applying something that could burn foliage, in terms of the high heat or high UV of the day, you kind of want to not do that. It would be the same thing with if I was applying JMS as a spray on it. I want to do it in a lower light level time of the day. So it's going to be the early morning. So it has a few hours for it to act and to dry and before the heat of the day kind of hits it, or it's going to be in the evening. And the reason I'm picking evening for applying this is because it'll have a chance to work during the highest humidity part of the day. That's the other aspect on this is when you get into the heat of the day, in the middle of the day, humidity tends to drop. At least here it does, and that's so the UV and the humidity are kind of detrimental in terms of the stress it puts on the tree and the foliage. So the other aspect too is in the mornings or in the evenings, the leaves are in a different stage, in terms of transpiration and things of that nature. So it's all kind of like it just makes the solution more effective and lessens the potential for downside damage. Now, I at this concentration level, I had noticed no damage to the foliage. So it is important though, when you think about it, is saying if you're concerned that there could be foliar damage, spray a small area, mix up a small batch, and spray a small area and watch for damage. Um, Leaves falling off that are infected may not mean that it's damaged. What you want to know is did it damage the new growth coming out? And if it didn't, then and it is controlling and will control the infection, then you've got a successful thing. So it's always when you're applying this stuff, you got to kind of be thinking about, is it too strong? Is it strong enough? So you observe how it works. If the infection level is too high in the conditions, right now we're warm and dry in the day. We're going to be this way for about another week, and we're very cool, out in the 40s at night with high humidity. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that we're going to have a dry spell, and this solution can be applied. Usually the control interval is about 10 days. So I'm going to be lucky. It looks like we're going to get almost 2 weeks of dry weather. So I'm going to be able to get two good sprays in and see how it goes. When do you see results? Typically, this is what the Jadam pesticide book says. It says that you should begin to notice differences in about 3 to 4 days after application, if you had the right concentration relative to the severity of the infection. If the infection was more severe, you could up this. They have what they call an emergency application rate. You kind of got to play it by ear, because again, no damage to the new foliage at this level that I'm talking about you might be going over. So think about it before you go up higher in the concentration level. Think about damage. So you might want to test an area, see if there's any damage. These things are going to be kind of like, a little bit of hit and miss in a sense from that perspective. But you know what? It's the same thing in applying pesticides really for anything is the control level is going to depend on the level of infestation, and it's going to depend on the conditions of what's going on. So that's about the best I can say about this. Other than that, it's just part of nature. We get these infections when you get the perfect conditions for mildews and rots and funguses, and spring and fall in our climate is the perfect time for all these things to just kind of come out and do their thing. Now, one of the other things you might say, well, what else can I use this Jadam sulfur for? There is a lot of things you can use this for. As an example, this same spray, again, test it, but spray it on your roses if you got black spot. And don't use it so much as a preventative. If you're trying to be a preventative, if you don't have black spot on your roses, because this is it's a tough solution, it's kind of harsh. Use a mixture of JMS with wetting agent, and you can if you're really consistent about that, it requires a lot of consistency. You can, at this time of year, probably use that as a more effective preventive, and it would be less harsh on your plants. However, if you are infected, using the sulfur is a good way to go. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. And like I said, I sprayed this thing a couple of days ago, or a day or so ago, and I'm thinking I'm going to start seeing some results. I did notice that some of the more brightly colored curled leaves, they were losing their brilliance in terms of the color. So I'm thinking that the sulfur is beginning to work. But it's been roughly a day and a half since I did it, so I'm only halfway through the period. And again, the control period, in terms of when do you spray again, roughly about 10 days. You kind of got to play it a little bit by ear. You could probably cheat a little bit earlier and maybe a little bit later, depending on how your weather goes. If you're applying this stuff when it's really wet and really rainy, well, try to hit it in a window where you can get at least 6 to 8 hours of dry, or that's the best you can get. That's the best you can get. Other than that, I wish you guys all kinds of luck, because I'm going to need it too. So anyway, thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.